That's it, Jade. Get out. Get out. Find something better than this crap. My God. Here we go. Welcome to episode 8 of the BigFooty BigBrother podcast. I'm your host, ODN, and with me, as always, and engaged in serious competition with Mr. Clooney to be Ben's number one stalker, it's Mrs. ODN.
Hello, everybody.
And working with the Australian Federal Police all week, negotiating a peaceful resolution on the BigFooty boards with a bunch of emotional hijackers, it's Phantom 13.
Good evening, guys. How are we?
Oh, pretty good. It's been a good week.
Good.
Been a good week in the house, and
that was good.
Hope everybody's well.
No woman flu here.
No woman flu. My man flu that I had last week is I've just started to shake it off, but I understand Phantom's actually caught it through Skype, so you know.
Yeah, ODN's managed to break quarantine, cross some state lines, and infect me with man flu for the week. So I'm battling through man flu just as you did last week, mate. So we'll see how we go.
It's only fair to share things around.
That's right.
Right, so we started the week, as usual, guys, with the eviction.
Yes, I was there.
You went to the eviction. And, surprise, surprise, we got it wrong. Yes, Matthew was evicted. We didn't really see that coming. The second least amount of save votes was the Sugar Sisters, then Michaela, Ed, Tahan and Ben got the most save votes, but only narrowly from Tahan. Something very weird in the voting patterns going on there. So, was anybody surprised that Matthew was evicted?
Very surprised. Because I thought that if Ben wasn't going to be the fake evictee, that Michaela would be. When in initial fact, Tahan was that next one that would have been the fake evictee. So I was shocked at that, but very shocked at Matt going. Like, I'm glad he did because he was boring. Totally boring. But I was glad that it was him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think all the results were actually fairly surprising. Obviously, we'd all picked Ed to go with his week, and we're obviously going to chat about how he managed to bump himself up a few percentage points. But Tahan getting the second most save votes was quite a surprise as well. Ben being the fake evictee, no big surprises there. I mentioned last week on the podcast when we were talking about voting that I was interested to see where the Sugar Sisters sat in terms of their voting percentage, and they only just scraped through. So I think that gives us a fair indication with their lack of screen time that they're probably not getting through to the public as much as they'd like.
You said that. That's right.
Yeah, it was just interesting because I didn't know where they sat, and I think that the result last week gave me a fair indication of where they sat. I didn't know whether they'd be up the top end or down the bottom end, and to me it looks like they're probably not getting the public's votes. But I think all the results were pretty surprising. It was a fairly shocking elimination. I think most of the housemates were pretty stunned, and the fake eviction obviously worked to a treat. I don't think anyone saw Ben going, and it sort of really shook the house up when he did go.
It did, very much so.
And obviously we heard some rumours that the old standing ovation for war hero Matt might not have been all it seemed, Mrs. ODN.
Exactly. That was really like full on. Like
what happened?
Oh well, we were in the audience, and they were saying, look, everybody, that goes in there, they do a good job to go in there, and whether you like them or you don't like them, they all deserve to not be booed and everything like that. And, when Matt comes out, because he's a soldier, let's all stand up, give him a standing ovation. And I was just like, you kidding? Like, really?
I guess,
like, you really want me to get off my seat for Matt? Like,
probably just to give the people out there that do listen to the podcast that haven't been to a live TV taping a bit of an insight. Generally, but you have a warm-up guy and a bit of a crowd rever up. So, and they run around, they give you cues, everyone claps on cue and laughs on cue, and you have different kinds of claps. Yeah. You can have a little clap, you can have a loud clap where you're cheering and stuff. So, and that's all fine. But in all my time of being to live filmings, and I've been to a few, I've never ever heard of them telling you to do a standing ovation. So I'm pretty surprised by that. But
yeah, well, actually, what even surprised me more was the fact that when the show had actually finished, and because, the eviction was obviously live, so when it had finished and, the credits were coming up, Mike Goldman actually got up and said, no, your job's not done yet, your job's not done yet. And people were just they were actually halfway out of their seats. He made everyone get back into their seats and start chanting Ben, 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 like that, so that the house, which is not even 1,000 metres away, would be able to, the fake eviction would have been more believable. But the thing is they even used us at the end of the show to do that when our job was done.
That's fair enough. That's actually smart thinking and smart planning. They should have probably not waited until you're halfway out of your seats, but but I know it was a smart move and good on them for thinking that. But what I'm trying to say, my point is that, you know, we go there to enjoy the show, not to work. We're not there to work for Channel 9. Yep. We're there to enjoy the show.
As you've said, they're not free tickets. You do pay for them.
Well, exactly. You know, so you're there as a spectator.
Yeah, no, fair enough. But look, I have no problem with orchestrating a standing ovation for a soldier. But it's the fact that they then went on air and said that's the first standing ovation we've had on Big Brother. They made a big deal about it as though it was off the cuff. And so that was a bit.
It was cheated.
A little bit tacky.
They put a bit of mustard on it, really, and I'm not sure that's. I guess it's a bit of false representation, which Big Brother has had some controversy with in the past, talking about editing certain housemates a certain way, and that to me is a prime example of that. They've made out as though the crowd loved Matt enough and respected what he'd done enough, and by all means, I have immense respect for the man. He represented our country in the Defence Force, but to orchestrate a standing ovation and then try and play it off like it was a spontaneous and random thing that people just did on their own, that doesn't sit very well with me.
So yeah, as we alluded to, Ed's save vote was quite a lot higher than it was on the week that Caleb went home, where he only narrowly avoided eviction himself. There was a bit of chatter on various websites and blog sites and Facebook whereby it appears that Ed's family were basically selling off a date with Ed to anybody that could prove that they had spent at least $50 voting for Ed.
I'd rather kiss George Clooney.
Well, Mr. Clooney. And further to that, there were some people complaining that the winner hadn't actually, their submission hadn't actually been seen on the page, and that they might either be not a real person or a friend of the family and not even a valid winner. But further to that, there's the suggestion that there was a plan made with Ed before they went in, that when his save vote became quite low and he needed a boost, that's when they would launch the competition.
It's cheating.
And the whole idea is, and what was being said on the Facebook page, that Ed knows about this, and Ed is single and looking for a girlfriend. Now, as we know, when Ed went into the house, he told people that he had made promises to his family not to hook up with anybody, and it's really starting to understand in a chronological order how things have happened now. He tentatively hooked up with Jade, and after drinking, and then he stays away from her the rest of the week while he's sober. Then he has another drink and he hooks up with her again, and then he puts her up for eviction instead of Tim, and then the following week he gives her a couple of votes. So he's blown very, very hot and cold with Jade, and nobody knew why. And now it appears that he's probably thinking about what the single women on the outside that want this date with him, because he doesn't know when this competition is going to take place or that it's already taken place. He's been in two minds the whole time, because he's got one eye on his external outside the house tactics and his inside the house tactics. Does anybody have a view on this, Phantom?
Yeah, look, this is really unsavoury, and it's a bad look for Big Brother. Look, I don't like Ed. To be honest, I've actually warmed a little bit more to him this week, because I think he is being a little bit more himself. I think he's put the shell of, Mr. Perfect away, and he's being who he wants to be more. He's being a little bit more strategic, and he's having some tougher conversations with people that we've been told and we've seen before that he's walked away from. Having said all of that, this thing that he's done with his family. If his family had done it on their own and he wasn't aware of it, well, then you can't blame the man for it. But the fact that he's complicit in it and he knows that it's going to happen and he's given the go-ahead and said, yep, this is what I want to happen, it shapes everything that we've seen about him for the last 8 weeks. I don't believe that anything he's done for the last 8 weeks has been genuine at all. I think everything that he's done up until this point has been a fabrication and this image of himself that he wants to create so that people on the outside think of him a certain way. He wants to be Mr. Nice Guy. He wants everyone to think of him as Prince Charming. He's backing off with whether he genuinely feels something for Jade or she's just a good-looking girl that's showing a bit of attention in the house. I'm not too fussed about any of that, but we said it a couple of weeks ago. The thing that we don't mind in the house, it might not sit very well with you, is someone that's manipulating and someone that can be a bit cheeky and plays people off against each other, as Tim's done. But what we're seeing now with Ed is that you don't know what's genuine about him. Nothing seems real with that guy anymore. And that's why no one other than a select few on the boards particularly like him. I think the whole thing is cheating. I'm surprised that it hasn't gotten any more play in the media than it has. And I'm surprised that Big Brother, who must be aware of it by now, hasn't done something to sort of say you can't do this anymore.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I don't like it at all.
Yeah, no, Big Brother was made aware of it, and as I said, it's what the families do is it's nothing to do with them. So it's sort of just
and that I agree with. If the family had done it all on their own and Ed didn't know about, then that's fine. But the suggestion and the sort of the implication that Ed is aware of it and is actively endorsing it as well, that's the thing that I don't like. You can't control what the families do. If I went in there, I'm sure, Ben's mum goes in the show.
He planned to cheat before he even went in the house.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and that's
how I see it.
That's what you can't have. And the other thing that I guess you're talking about here is, they're effectively fleecing people out of money. And now it looks as though, and there's no proof, when we're certainly not condemning him before understanding the full implication of it, but it looks as though this date that he was sort of auctioning off on himself wasn't even legitimate anyway, that he had no intention of going on a date with someone that he'd never met. So I think it just shows he's a very superficial person, and everything that he's done in the house has been false, and it's not who he really is. He's in there to win $250,000, and that in and of itself is fine, but I don't like people that go into the house to cheat, to manipulate, and purely to win, and haven't had any honest conversations with people. And this week since he's done that, I've been warming to him more, but this whole thing, I think, has sullied him, and I'd be surprised if there's many people out there that still think he's Prince Charming.
Yeah. Look, the validity of the competition and the ultimate winner is that's all speculative, and that's just what's been, I guess, what some of the losing women have actually said. But the rest of it's all, been well publicised. So we're just repeating what we've seen out there. But it does show, if this is what's been going on, he's had such a problem with people manipulating. Yet he's been manipulating the game since he went in there, and now that he's taken away that Prince Charming exterior, he's straight out manipulating people in the house now in a different way, which is fine, which is what Tim does, and which is we like to see. But to have such a problem with manipulators and to be shown that he's probably been manipulating in some way the whole time is hypocritical to the extreme.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Moving on to the feast, which we saw on Tuesday night, but as we know, is always in the house on a Friday night. So Friday the 13th, it was a VIP night in the house. Wow.
Wow, indeed.
Drama aplenty. Look, I don't know where to start. What I'm going to do.
Team Michaela.
What I'm going to do. I'll throw it open. We saw an argument between Tahan and Michaela. Who wants to run with this one?
I just think Tahan was a nasty, 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 nasty little girl. I mean, you don't sit there with a plate of food, carry on like a pork chop the way you did about it, and then go, oh, no wonder I can't fit into my dress. Like, there's no joking. She said, oh, but I was only joking. I didn't mean it. I'm sorry. You can't do that, say that afterwards, and then turn around and say, yeah, but it was a joke. That's a cop-out. She's trying to make an excuse for being a bitch. And to me, Michaela didn't deserve that. And yes, Michaela screamed at her and swore at her, but that was only because Tahan was going at her. I am team Michaela.
Yeah, I tend to agree.
Han is a nasty bitch and she needs to go.
Whack.
Yes.
I don't care.
That's right.
Good boobs, good body. I don't give a shit. She needs to go.
I like it. Look, as far as when the initial fight started off, that was one of the more weird things I've ever seen. It sort of seemed to start off a bit playful and a little bit of banter. I think it started off with Michaela, them doing a bit of a talent show, and Michaela saying, I don't want to do it, which actually gave me flashbacks to a few weeks ago when Tahan was trying to get Michaela and all the girls to do the beauty pageant. Michaela said, yeah, all right, I'll do it. Oh, but are you sure you don't have to do it? Well, no, I don't really want to, but I'll do it. It seems like a bit of fun. Oh, but you don't have to. I'm not forcing you. And Tahan sort of was doing the same thing again, except this time she wasn't saying, I'm not going to force you. She was saying, it's only 5 minutes, just get up and do something. And it escalated. And I mean, we mentioned last week that the whole house just seemed to be this simmering pot that was just about to explode, and it happened on Friday the 13th. The fight itself, I've no idea what really happened, but what happened after the fight, I think, was probably more telling in the way that Michaela seemed to take a lot of the stuff on board and sort of seemed to feel quite bad about the fight that had happened and the fact that she'd sort of, not necessarily embarrassed herself, but that they'd had a fight in public and, that she'd lost control of her emotions. And Tahan went over and grabbed a chair and began to mimic Michaela and, I guess the fast eating excuse, maybe you accept that, maybe you don't. Personally, I don't really think that it was a legitimate excuse, but that's just a personal opinion. But then to stand up and go, oh, now I can never fit into my dresses because I'm so fat or whatever she said, there's a line, and she didn't just step over it, she took a running leap at it. And you can't do that, especially someone like Tahan, who obviously is a very pretty girl and has a fantastic body and all the rest of it. You're just perpetuating massive body image issues that she should be well aware of being a model, on a girl that obviously has some issues with it in the first place. It wasn't okay at all. And Tahan really needs to rein it in. And she's done it a few times this week with other people. She's been just hanging on the Sugar Sisters constantly. I think she needs to remember that being in the Big Brother house, and even though the people might not necessarily be your best mates, that it is a privilege, and it's something that a lot of people would kill for, and she just seems to be sulking around and angry at the world at the moment. So,
well, even tonight, prime example of that. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go home. I've had enough.
Yeah, it's not a good look, and it just comes across honestly, and I like Tahan, and I don't like saying bad stuff about her, but it comes
we know
it comes across like she's a spoiled brat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
not a way to put it. And the things that she said about Michaela, girls should know, and guys certainly know that there's lines that you just don't cross, and that's certainly one of them. The things that she said about Michaela weren't on, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
Just before we go to the other big fight of the night, it was a double header.
What fight was that?
We'll come back to that.
Oh, sorry.
While we're talking about Michaela and her body image issues and all this other stuff, really, I just wanted to expand on that a little bit. Michaela talking about how she hates her Asian features, and the history was very...
So she wanted to have an eye job.
Yeah, that
runs pretty deep. I mean, if you are of another nationality and you want to change that, that's something from more, I think, to do with her from within.
Yeah.
Rather than,
Yeah, I guess she's probably got some identity issues. I think she's Korean from memory, and she was adopted by an Australian family. So I could only imagine that it's probably hard for her to find really strong roots to her Asian heritage. This is all speculation, by the way. Obviously, we don't know how she really thinks or feels. This is just what I imagine is going through her mind. But I don't know. I was really uncomfortable watching that conversation. I can't imagine ever feeling that way about myself, and it's certainly not a criticism on Michaela, because you can't criticise her for feeling that way, and I can't put myself in her shoes. I've never had to deal with what she's dealt with, but I don't know. I just, for people watching the show and to sort of hear someone say the things about themselves like that, and body image issues are one thing, and I think that, a lot of people deal with that, and I think seeing Michaela sort of struggle with it and embracing herself in one way is good, but to hear her just flat out say that I think at one point she might have even said she hated being Asian or something along those lines.
That's sad. So sad.
It is sad, but it's also a really horrible message to be sending to anybody. And I appreciate that she came out and spoke about it openly and candidly, but geez, it sounded bad.
No, exactly. Especially to her race, it would.
Yeah, definitely.
That's like an insult to them, you know?
And it was one of those times where, obviously we spoke last week about Tahan having Malaysian descent, obviously, you know, an Asian nation as well. That would have been pretty hard for her to hear as well. I mean, obviously she doesn't have, and Michaela was talking about the physical characteristics of Asian people, and Tahan doesn't have the same physical characteristics that Michaela does, but it's still going to be difficult. You're talking about culture and identity, and, you know, for a lot of people that can be incredibly personal thing. So
I think Tahan's got more Indigenous in her, though, hasn't she, than Asian?
I think she does, but that's sort of beside the point. If she identifies with an Asian heritage, then she's completely entitled to those opinions, and she can feel that way. If she feels a strong affinity for it, then she's more, at least from what I could see, she has every right to be as offended by an Asian joke as Michaela would have, and that's sort of where that line got a little bit blurred, and Tahan brought it up tonight just very briefly.
Yeah, she did.
The whole thing, I don't know. It's
Do you think it was having another slight go at Michaela, though?
Oh, I think it was I don't think it was a slight go. I think it was a legitimate go. But we talked about last week when Tahan raised that she thinks Michaela was racist to Big Brother just when it was Big Brother in the diary room. I wasn't okay with that because I didn't see the point. She raised it tonight directly with Michaela and got quite emotional when she was talking about it and said, you know, you talking about, you know, hating your Asian heritage and the things that you say and mocking, you know, Asian stereotypes. I don't agree with that. And I actually thought that Tahan had some pretty valid points.
Yeah.
It was definitely having a go at Michaela, but I think that on this particular issue, I was on Team Tahan. I think she raised some very valid points that Michaela should probably take on board, because it's not just about whether Michaela's comfortable with making fun of her heritage. It's also about the people that are around her and whether they're comfortable with it, especially if they are Asian themselves or identify themselves as Asian.
Yeah, no, I hate Tahan. Sorry.
Well, that's fair enough.
I can't stand her, especially in the last week. She's just like almost on the same par as Tully.
She is a mean girl, and I can't think of too many times when she's had anything nice to say about anyone.
She's like Ed. She's only a shell, you know? Like, they're not proving they've got anything else in there. Like, they're just a shell. A prawn.
Well, she's a shell with a Kim Kardashian bag, as it turns out. So,
yes. I agree that she should have done that, though.
Our Big Brother jumped the shark, I think. He's just, how long is he going to...
We shouldn't even give that any airtime.
No, let's move on. There was a second fight in the house. Well, it wasn't so much a fight as it was a discussion that escalated in many ways, whereby Ed sat down and told Tully that she was an emotional hijacker. And he also told her that she should not trust Drew, that basically her being with Drew hurts us being, I guess, his little clique with, at the time, Matt himself, and presumably they were considering Tully part of that group and probably Tahan. Phantom, do you want to take this one first?
I guess first and foremost, this one went up the boards. The whole fight was very divisive, and you're either on one team or the other team, and a lot of people don't like Tully and couldn't understand why she walked away from it. But this fight and this conversation had two facets to it for mine. The first one was about Ed calling Tully an emotional hijacker, which I think is spot on. I couldn't agree with Ed more. I think Tully has a tendency to inject herself in every situation that can have any emotional realm, take it up to 100, and then just overbear everyone else so that no one else really gets to express how they feel. And it's difficult to watch. She did it when Ben came back into the house. She did it when Ben got evicted. She does it every eviction night. That in and of itself was okay by me, and I actually liked that Ed made that call. I was happy that someone had finally called her on it. Having said that, I don't think that Tully does it as a strategy. I think that that's just her natural reaction. I think she's a very emotional person and she overreacts, but you know, someone needs to tell her, even if it is just as constructive criticism, hey, Tully, look, are you aware that you do this? It might be something you need to rein back in. But before they sort of got to that point of it, it was all about Ed. The conversation that he brought up with Drew and even about the emotional hijacking was about how this week wasn't about Tully because she wasn't nominated, and that this makes it hard for him to try and get any attention with the public. And then he went off on the tangent with Drew saying you can't trust him, blah, 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 blah. That was just Ed playing a game. That was Ed being what I think Ed probably genuinely is, as opposed to Prince Charming, just trying to drive a wedge between housemates, because we know that couples can be harder to control than individuals. and everything that he raised was just ridiculous. And I guess the backlash on the boards for this one was quite interesting, because a lot of people said, Tully walked off and she had no right to, and et cetera, et cetera. And ODN, you raised it yourself and said, if someone comes and has a hard conversation with you, you can choose to sit there and you can choose to have that conversation, or you can choose to walk away. Tully chose to walk away, and she's absolutely entitled to do that. I don't see why anyone thought that she had an obligation to sit there and listen to what Ed had to say. I think it was just Ed being Ed. And whilst he did have some valid points, and I guess, it's that, are you okay with someone having that conversation even if it isn't with the best of intentions? I sort of am. But at the same time, there was no obligation for her to sit there and listen to it. And as soon as he took it down the tangent of you can't trust Drew, and Drew tells us this and Drew tells us that, well, of course Tully was going to walk away. You can't just come in, cold call someone and tell them that their closest friend in the house is actually an enemy. I don't know what he expected to achieve out of that.
I love Drew's come back to it all, though.
Well,
he was mad.
No, but at first she seemed to have taken it on board, and she seemed to,
she did.
When she raised it with Drew, seemed to be wondering whether she could trust Drew, and he was a bit offended that she was actually bringing that up.
But I think that's just Tully. I think that, I rephrase that. I think that's just Tully and Drew. I think that she's always looking for any drama that she can create in that relationship, and Drew knows it. So I don't think that it was. It's hard to say whether she literally took what Ed said on board and thought it for a little bit, or if she just heard it and went, oh, this is something that I can start a fight with Drew about. But I don't know, that was a bit weird, but she definitely did. She sat there and listened to what Ed had to say, and for a minute there it looked as though she was going to start slipping away from Drew's clutches and go across to the dark side.
Yeah. Just takes one look into those dreamy eyes and it's all back on again. But Drew got really emotional about it. It's sort of, I think it was the first time we saw any tears from Drew, and it wasn't. It was built up. It was built up that maybe he was in the middle of it and he cried over a fight with Ed, but it was actually more he was upset that she was so upset, and he genuinely felt some sort of sympathy for her. And
it looked for a second like he was going to get off the chair and go and snot Ed.
Well, he was going to. He really felt like doing that, and it looked like she stopped him. He wanted to go and confront him, and he was so angry, and he basically said, "I don't give a fundamental that he played AFL footy. He's a dick." And you can substitute whatever words you like in there.
He said just about all of them. So.
That was, I didn't mind seeing that little outburst from Drew. Generally a very laid back, cruisy guy. And, he let us see that other side. And he got taken to task for it too on some of the sites. And, I don't know why it's not okay. I think that's just because he's mixed up with Tully. So anything he does that's, angry or, at all negative is going to cost him, because, as we talked about before, that the whole Tully thing is magnifying his negatives. Turning it to a funnier note, still going on with the Tully and Drew conversation, they went to have a chat about trust, and you hear a voice in the background saying, "I'm in the pool."
Oh, that was funny. I nearly wet my
pants.
pants.
Poor Benny's got caught short in the pool while they were about to have a deep and meaningful out in the yard, thinking they were the only ones there. And Drew just about wet himself. He laughed so hard about it. Again, when they were talking later...
excuse me, sorry.
Poor Ben and his...
that was a cracker.
Wandered on through to get his water bottle.
He got involved in the Michaela one as well. He was sort of walking past and saw all the girls crying and sat down and said, I didn't like Katie and Lucy's performance either while Michaela was crying.
He had a great night, Ben, didn't he?
He had all the social awareness of Mr. Magoo, but it came off brilliantly. You couldn't, Mr. Teflon just wouldn't stick to him. It was everything came up trumps for him that night.
Absolutely. I had a great affection for Benny. He made me laugh so much at the time. What else did we see on feast night? There was some good conversations going on. The boys all talked about what would you do if your son said he was gay.
And we got a pretty good insight into how tough it must have been for Ben as well. That was quite compelling to listen to that. I think it's probably a side that a lot of people don't get to hear about. Obviously when when young boys and young girls have to come out and reveal their sexuality that they've obviously always had. And he talked about getting spit on, and he talked about getting bullied and all the rest of it. And I just think that sort of behaviour for someone in that situation is disgusting. And I think that looking at Ben and looking at the way that he is, I think that shows that he's got a hell of a lot of character to have gone through what he must have gone through and come out the other side of it with such a sunny disposition and to be such a, I guess, a fun-loving guy.
Yeah, much respect. We went really deep there for a second. I'm about to go really shallow.
We need to clean us up a little bit, ODM. We're getting way off track here.
It's not the Biggest Loser, it's the Big Brother.
Sex tapes. We had a discussion about sex tapes.
Who did?
Everybody.
The housemates did.
Oh,
now,
I missed this.
Jade would do one in a relationship. Lucy wouldn't. Ed would. Michaela would. Ben wouldn't. Tahan has done one. Drew has done one. Tully has done one. I think that's what she was saying. And Matt has done more than one.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
So, keep an eye out on in the future because no doubt.
Yeah, check the internet.
So...
wonder if Tahan's wearing Kim Kardashian's eyelashes in it. Oh, sorry.
I didn't have any.
So sorry.
I didn't have any particular. There was no particular surprises with the ones he wouldn't and would. I guess.
Oh my God!
I mean, some are talking about the sanctity of a relationship.
Yeah, but come on, I think Ben would be really good in one. Just staring at the photo of Bert.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where has my thought process gone? Please.
That's an image I need to get rid of with something very, very tall and stiff.
That's burned into the deepest recesses of my brain now. That's going nowhere.
Okay. I told you I was going shallow, people.
Good. Yeah. This is more our level.
Now, let's have a little bit of a chat about Ben and his, it's not a superpower, but his power as the fake Vic D.
The best thing I've ever seen on Australian television happened last Monday night.
Him going in the house?
Yes. The superpower, everything.
I think it was nice when they told him what it was and he had survived, and that was all very nice.
Oh.
Look, I don't know what anybody else thought, but
God, I love that man.
I thought the whole concept ended up falling really, really flat.
Oh, I didn't?
Discuss it. What did you like about it?
Well, I'm going to backtrack. Okay, maybe the superpowers could have been a bit more exciting, but I loved the fact that he really believed he was being evicted. The look on his face was priceless.
Took it very well, didn't he?
He took it like a gentleman. Like Ben should, right? The housemates were like devastated, I had tears in my eyes. I was like, oh my God, just tell him that it's a fake eviction. I think the way Big Brother handled all that part was really, really good. And especially, Big Brother's telling him and he's like, oh, Big Brother, you're so bad. It was like just so funny, like the way he was just like, like carrying on about it was so funny. But what I love the most is when he got to go back into the house and the housemates were just so happy to see him. Like, they were genuine. Even Tim was being a bit genuine there. Like, they were all really happy to have him back. Yeah. And to me, that sent tears in my eyes because I tell you here and now, to everyone that listens, that shows everybody what kind of a person that he is for people to feel like that about somebody.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? But I do think that the superpowers, it could have been a bit more exciting, like the whole phone call with Ed thing, like...
Well, that was just to help Ed out.
I know it was to help Ed out. But
what did Ben get to ask a couple of questions of housemates through Big Brother? He was the wrong person to do it. We knew he would be.
I think that one of the superpowers should have been that he was able to hear them nominate for who and for what reason. That would have been really, that would have just ended the twist really well because he would have been able to go back into that house knowing what other housemates think of who they nominated, obviously. So, I think that it could have been a little bit more exciting. But look, I think there's more to come. Let's not give up on it now.
Well, that was such a big storyline for 24 hours and really it didn't. There was no great reveal or anything. He didn't gain himself any real insight, I don't think. Phantom, did you have any
Yeah, along the same lines as you, mate. I think the way that he handled it was fantastic, and it showed the sort of the character of the person himself. Once he was in there, it was a bit dull. He had this weird thing of sort of consistently talking to Big Brother / the camera / the Australian public. I'm not sure. I get the impression that he's probably the sort of bloke that walks around at home and talks to himself. So I'll let that slide. But it did seem a little bit weird. And there are a few times where he specifically mentioned thanks Australia and thanks.
Yeah.
I don't know whether I'm not sure whether it's genuine, I guess. I assume that it probably is because I'm not going to cast aspersions over Ben. He does seem like just a genuinely nice person, but it seemed a little weird to me. Maybe that's just the cynic in me. I agree with you, Mrs. ODN. I wanted to see him watch people nominate. I think that would have been a lot more interesting than what he got to do. But overall, it fell a bit flat.
Well, can I just end by saying that Ben's cousin was sitting behind Debbie and I. His actual cousin was sitting behind us. And I know that it was his cousin because his mum, Ben's mum, came over from the front row, came up, walked all the way out the back and was talking to him. And they had like all these, they had all these stuff that, like merchandise and all this stuff that they had. But I was actually talking to Ben's cousin. I'm not name dropping, I'm just saying that I was talking to him and he was saying how genuine he's being and everything like that. And we found we got into it more because you know me, I love Ben and I've been a Ben supporter from day one. But I found that the excitement for Debbie and I was even more simply because we knew Ben's cousin was sitting behind us and he kept tapping us on the shoulder saying, oh, what did you think of that? And I'm like, oh my God, I loved it. So it was like we were just like all getting into it, and it was just really, really, really good. So he is being really genuine. I get that there's sometimes it comes across he's not, but as I've said previously, I think Ben just has a lot of layers about him,
Yep. Yeah,
and,
definitely.
Yeah. Team Ben.
Oh dear. Look. Oh, dear, I forgot something quite interesting. They had a round of confessions while they were all heavily drinking. Michaela confessed she had a sex dream about Drew.
I even just watching Michaela tonight, I think that she's got cabin fever. I think her boyfriend's going to get torn apart when she gets out of that place.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a bit of a dark horse in that regard. Drew confessed to actually stealing alcohol, or Tim and Drew, and Tully got upset and ruined it, and they told her that she had ruined it.
Nobody else cared, but Tully just went, here's another reason to have a fight with Drew. I'll jump on that bandwagon.
Yeah, and she carried it on afterwards, and you're like, no, don't.
And, sorry, can I just say something? I know that it's not a part of what you just want to say now, but I'll make it quick, okay? Before they all go into the house, they've got to have psych tests. How the hell did Tully pass?
I think you might have mentioned that one before.
No, I haven't. This is the first time.
Well, I've definitely read
How the hell did she pass that test to get into that house? Because she's so not stable. That's all I'm saying. Rant over.
Ed's confession, and I thought this was cheap. I don't care whether you've been drinking or not, but it's not so much his confession. But he confessed that he touched Jade's boob. Now, that embarrassed her completely. And if you're going to confess something about yourself. Don't confess something that's more about putting Jade in it. I just thought that was a bit tacky, and he should have. It was disrespectful.
Once again, speaks to the character of the man himself.
Yeah,
he couldn't sit there and give a confession about something bad that he'd done because that'd destroy his image. He's Mr. Nice Guy that never puts a foot wrong. But he can sit there and say, "Oh, Jade let me touch her boob," because that's the kind of girl Jade is. Wink, wink to the camera. I just think that that's what he is. He's happy to. He'll throw anyone under the bus, and he's done it with Jade on numerous occasions because she is the soft target, and she never holds him accountable for it.
Now, exactly. I didn't watch it, but I think Mrs. ODN, you told me that Jade tonight told Tim that she loves Ed.
Oh, not in so many words.
Oh, okay.
She actually specifically said that she didn't love him. She liked him a lot, but there was enough on tonight.
Oh, I thought she said she did love him.
No, Tim said, you love Ed, and she specifically said, I don't love him, I like him a lot, but everything else that she's doing, she's full-blown bunny boiler now. when she went into the rewards room tonight, she took her bracelet off and put it underneath Ed's pillow.
Yes, I saw that. And then
you in his bed. He's not going to like having your crap in his bed, love. Get it out.
I know, but did you see how she dealt with that then?
Well, I think they implied that Jade had told Michaela to make sure that Ed found it, because otherwise he might have just gone to sleep and not found it. It's a
but did
bracelet
you hear what Michaela said to Ed?
I think Michaela said what everyone else was thinking.
Well, I don't know if you heard it, because I might be hearing wrong things tonight because I've already made one mistake.
I think you heard it right.
I think Michaela said to Ed, she told him that the bracelet was under there, and I think she said, Ed, do you think that's too much, or something along those lines?
Yep. No, she pretty much did, yeah. And she also,
and she was trying to stir the pot, see?
I don't think she was. I think
Ed, you don't.
Ed grabbed the bracelet out and had a look at it, and I think Ed was a bit like, whoa, this is pretty weird. Like, why is she doing this? And then Ed made a point of saying, I've had a conversation with her that what goes on in here is what goes on in here, and that it's not going to go in.
I heard that, yep.
And Kayla sort of said the same thing. She's like, yeah, you have, but I don't think it's getting through to her.
Yeah, getting through, I heard that
and
too.
Just, I think everyone in the house and everyone outside the house, and this is probably one where I don't think there's any conjecture, it's sort of unanimous across the board, that Jade is way too full on about it now, and it was getting sad and creepy before, and when
but
she
it's
put the
more like
bracelet
an
under
obsession now,
pillow,
though.
Yeah.
It's more like
when
an
she put the
obsession.
bracelet under his pillow,
Well, look,
I went sort of creepy.
Yeah, but look, Matt's left and he's stepped it up, and now he's hanging around Jade so much more because he needs he needs somebody to attach himself to. And he's encouraging it. He
is encouraging it. But Jade is, because he's encouraging it, Jade is getting a bit more obsessive about it.
Yeah.
See, I have a hard time blaming Ed, because as a bloke, put yourself in his shoes. You've got a girl who's hanging around like a bad smell no matter what you do or say. I would take the attention and probably treat her like crap as well, because she lets it happen. Yeah. I mean, that might make me sound like a terrible person, and it's certainly not something that I advocate, but it'd be really hard not to. I mean, Ed's in a situation now where he could probably walk up to Jade and say, I'd really like you to just piss off and give me some space and only come around me when I'm drunk, because that's the only time I'm interested. And she'd just go, oh, okay. Ed. Like, it's just, she's got the blinders on about the way that he really is, and he's just, I guess he's indulging in it because he can. I don't like Ed, everyone knows that, but I have a very hard time blaming him for the Jade situation, because to me, she knows what's going on there and she's allowing it to happen to herself.
Yeah. Okay. I do agree.
Hey, look, from a personal point of view, and this has taken away my impartiality as a host, I do not like Tim getting in there and backstabbing and siding with Ed and plotting with Ed. It's affecting my opinion of him.
Why?
He's going after Drew.
It's called playing the game.
Yeah, but I just don't like who he chose to play it with. That's all. It's my personal opinion.
Yeah, well, no, I disagree with you. I think it's great.
It actually affects the way it actually affects, because the whole misfits thing, versus the cool people thing, and Tim now playing that cool side of the fence, bothers me. So that just affects my opinion anyway. But
I think that's a fair point, but I think what Tim is doing is he's trying to divide and conquer, but I agree with you, but not for the same reason. I don't have a problem with him going to Ed. I just think it's the worst possible choice he could have made, because Ed's the only person in there that's really trying to plot his downfall.
Yeah,
he could cite anybody else in the house to try and take off Drew, and I don't like it because Drew was his mate and they were sort of buddy-buddy from the start, but at some stage it is going to be a game and you do have to try and pick off those people, and Drew is a bit more popular, but I just don't think that he should be doing it with Ed.
Ed has said that he is going to drop this big bomb, and he's got, a deck of cards or something, and he's got everything. What the hell is he talking about? What has he got on those housemates?
He has got donuts. He's got about as much up his sleeve as he had possessions in his AFL career.
Oh, that was great, Ben.
Yeah.
He's got nothing. You know what it'll be? He'll walk out. He'll probably have some nasty things to say in his video message. Well, it's been done, champ.
That's all he's got. He's only got the video message where he can tell people what they said about each other. Okay, so he can drop those bombs, but he can't drop any bombs outside to the audience. We see everything, and we know everything, and Big Brother knows everything, so there's nothing that he can do that actually affects...
But he keeps going on about that.
Yeah, I don't know whether he thinks he's the only person to ever play the game before.
Has he got inside information or something?
No, even in terms of the video that he can leave for the house, what's he going to say? Oh, Tully, Drew bitches about you a bit. She knows that.
Yep.
Everybody, Tim's running around playing the game. They know that. None of them in there don't know anything he's going to say. Nothing's going to be revelatory. No one's going to sit there and watch his video and go, oh my God, Katie and Lucy are sisters. When did this come about? He's got nothing. He's trying to make out like it's a big deal. I think it's all for show. I think that is Ed's thing. Everything he does is for show.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But Tim specifically said that he made a point of saying when Drew and that are in talking to Ben that they're, what you watch, they're going to sort of clam around Ben and sort of make a big fuss over him like this week. Now, in Drew's defence, him and Ben get on very, very well. So we saw this conversation between Drew and Ben, whereby Ben said, he'll have Drew around once they get out and introduce him to his wife and kids. Margie, this is Drew. Margie, come over here. This is Drew. And he said, I'm not really gay.
And I don't really like pyjamas.
I don't really like pyjamas. That was hysterical. And
my glasses aren't prescription.
Exactly. So, as I said, all the funny moments from the week belong to Ben. So, he goes along, he cruises along, he goes under the radar, and then suddenly he just bursts out, and the spotlight was on him this week, despite all those fights. And it was fantastic to see. But Drew has a genuine affection for Ben, and so Tim suggesting that it's all strategic was a bit under the belt, I thought. So nominations this week. Obviously, Ben wasn't in the house. They thought he was evicted, but he was watching from another room. Ed had the superpower, and he was known as the caller. He got to call up Ben twice and ask 3 questions each time, just sort of to find out how many points different people were on. He also got 6 points to vote with. At the end of all that, we had Tahan on 14 points, Tully 11, Jade 7, Katie and Lucy 7.
Tim only got 3.
Yeah, Tim 3, Drew 2, Michaela 2.
And good to see Michaela at the bottom end of the scale this week.
Well, and so there was only Big Brother had informed the house that there was only going to be 4 people up, and one of them would be saved during after showdown. So we had the 4 girls up: Tahan, Tully, Jade, Katie, and Lucy. Did anything stand out about that nomination process?
Ed not getting any points, again, just proves that when you have the superpower, no one's willing to nominate you.
Exactly, yes.
And that will continue to happen every week, I suspect.
Mm-hmm.
And no, just obviously dominated by the girls this week. I just noticed Tim actually had 5. Ed gave him 2 and Ben gave him 3, but otherwise the boys got very little. They sort of didn't really get any points at all. Ed obviously got none. Drew got 2 from Ed at the end, and that was pretty much all she wrote, and obviously Ben was saved. So, no real surprises. Tully and Tahan are obviously the ones that no one particularly likes. Michaela not getting nominated was a bit of a surprise, actually.
Yeah, I thought that's great.
Well, yeah, given that took place after the Friday show, so yeah, you're right.
I think that's probably just showing that there's a big shift in power now. That, Michaela, Jade and Katie and Lucy are all obviously very tight, and the other people that are going to vote for them can sort of only vote for 1 or 2. If you try and vote for all 3, you're probably not going to have enough votes to nominate all of them. So, you see Tahan and Tully go up, and Katie and Lucy and Jade get 7, and then one of them gets saved anyway. So,
yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah,
it's going to be interesting.
Ed threw a couple of points towards Jade and Tahan.
Probably his only 2
allies in the house.
What a dirtbag.
And his reasoning was really, really stupid.
Honestly, he's a dirtbag.
But anyway,
I don't like him.
One thing I noticed there, and this is something that Phantom has been very, very passionate about throughout the show. Drew gave 3 points to Tahan for strategy. He said that she has to keep being nominated in order to go home. Big Brother said it was the worst strategy. This is something you've been banging on about, Phantom, all year, about if you don't keep putting them up, they're not going to go home.
Lit the boards up as well, didn't it? There are a few people that completely disagreed with me and said that the Big Brother's on the money. I'm very passionate about it. I very much believe that this is the case. If you don't nominate someone, they're never going to go home.
No, of course they're not.
keep nominating them. I
I've got
don't
to say, you've got to be
understand.
stupid if you don't think that. If you don't nominate someone, they're never going to go.
Well, potentially some of our dear listeners that post on the boards and talk about Big Brother quite a bit were in the same boat as Big Brother, saying, why would you keep nominating her if she keeps not going home? Well, if you don't nominate her, she's definitely not going to be going home. So
exactly. And look, I don't think it's the same as the Tim situation where people said, don't put Tim up, he's too strong at this stage of the game. That's because they can see what is entertaining about Tim and what is likeable about Tim. There's not a lot that the housemate seems to think is likeable about Tahan, so you're going to think that she's always going to be in the mix to go home because she is bitchy. So it's a totally different situation to putting Tim up where you think he's probably going to beat you, and putting Tahan up where you think, well, there's reason for people not to vote for her. So
see, I don't entirely agree with you, Eddie, and I think Tim and Tahan are in a very similar boat in that both of them live on a knife's edge with the things that they say. Tahan has said some particularly nasty things about Michaela that probably could send her home this week. Tim has the potential to do the same thing, and we saw one week when he wasn't nominated, he started really going after Ben. Now, that could alienate the public. At the end of the day, those two are one Freudian slip away from alienating everyone outside the house. Tahan could say one thing, and it will probably wind up being about body image or something like that every girl in the world would just go, she's a bitch, I'm not going to save her anymore. Tim has the potential to do the same thing because he is so outlandish and he does say such outrageous things that he could take it too far. Now, I think he has the presence of mind to not do that, but I think that he has the potential to do it as well. So I would keep nominating both of them if it was me in there, but I understand where you're coming from. You put Tim up and you're up against him, you're probably the one going home. But he is one sentence away from pissing enough people off that he doesn't get any votes.
No, I actually do agree with you. I was talking about the early season Tim, where he was so strong and he was so funny and he was so charismatic. Now, I think he's making mistakes.
Yep, absolutely.
And I feel like he's maybe run out of tricks and he's making it up on the fly now.
Yep.
This Tim is somebody that is probably going to be losing a little bit of support. I still think he's in front, but I think he might be on the decline unless he can freshen things up.
We all know Ben's going to win it anyway.
Well, I mean,
I'm not kidding you.
After the week that Ben just had, I find it hard to disagree with you. I still think probably Tim's in front because people do appreciate game players who entertain. So we will see.
They'll be the last two anyway.
But two-horse race, that's for sure.
While we're just talking about Tim, he did have the funniest nominations, as he frequently does. He gave 3 votes to Tully. He basically says, the mate brings home a girl, and he gave it 2 weeks. It's been longer. Not good for Drew. Sick of Sookie Lala ways, and they pick fights just so they can get a makeup hug. I thought that was it was accurate, but it was quite amusing at the same time. Katie and Lucy gave 2 points. He said, they're sugar and spice and all things nice, and I'm from the planet of snakes and snails and puppy dog's tails. So, nobody expresses things like Tim. Big Brother then said, aren't you really voting for Katie and Lucy because you think they could win Big Brother? He said, no, I don't think they have a chance in hell. Nobody calls it quite as frankly as Tim does. So, look, we've had since then we've had the showdown. It's been run and won, and Tim won the showdown, and he has saved Jade, and he's taken Jade into the presidential suite because he thinks he has a chance.
He'd mentioned earlier on in the week as well that if he won, he probably would have actually liked to save Tahan, but in another move of strategy, he realised that if he did that, he would have alienated Jade, Michaela, and the Sugar Sisters. So I think that probably played into a little bit as well. I think he's playing off the Jade thing, making out as though he's interested, and he might be. She's an attractive girl, but I think there was also a fair element of strategy in that. Yeah,
I agree with you there. So at the end of the day, we've got 3 people up, and after having 6 every week.
See you, Tully.
Well,
it'll be great to be there to see you go.
Tahan, Tully,
I've got that little thing of tissues.
Katie and Lucy are up.
To give her as she's coming down the runway.
Anyone that's at the Big Brother compound this week, make sure you bring your floaties.
Yes, and Kleenex, because she'll be
And
needing a
Kleenex.
lot of them.
So, look, I take it, Mrs. ODN, you're tipping Tully's going to be the one going home.
See it, Tully. Tully.
Do you concur, Phantom?
I do not concur.
He's going to go Sugar Sisters, I bet ya.
I think the Sugar Sisters are going home this week. But bets, let's be honest, none of us is a savant. We're not striking real well. But my theory behind Katie and Lucy is simply that they had such a poor save percentage last week. And we obviously were talking off air, Mrs. ODN, about that you think that a lot of Ben's followers will probably throw votes towards Katie and Lucy this week.
Yeah.
Which it's a pretty solid theory, and to be honest, until you mentioned it this evening, I hadn't thought of that at all, and I could get made to look like a total fool. But
Okay.
I think Katie.
We
and
know
Lucy,
you're not.
I can be, but Katie and Lucy, they don't do a lot, and I think the big thing that the trend that I'm sort of seeing is Matt went last week. Didn't do a lot, not a lot of screen time. No one's particularly interested. I think Katie and Lucy are in a similar sort of boat. They're not doing a lot. I think, and I have to honestly admit, they still drive me insane, but they might be the two nicest people you've ever seen in your life. Their niceness is just purely genuine, and it's not for show, and they are always nice, even when they're upset. So, but they're just not, they're not as entertaining as Tahan and Tully are. And I think that's probably going to be the reason that they go this week.
Yeah, well, I've flip-flopped. I mean, seeing that Tim picks it every week and he's given votes to Tully and the Sugar Sisters this week, I sort of thought, everybody seemed to come out and agree with the emotional hijacking stuff, and still a lot of vitriol out there for Tully. But I've come around to the entertainment point of view. I think that Tully has put herself front and centre again, and that's just going to make her supporters probably defend her. She did have a fairly low save vote last time, but she's been on camera, and I've flipped. I was Tully all week, and I've changed to Katie and Lucy.
Okay.
So I think
good luck, boys.
That's all right. You might be even with me come the end of this.
I just know how disliked Tully is.
May the best tipster win.
Yes, exactly. Oh, do you know what? I'm not telepathic or anything, but I have a feeling that if Tully leaves on Monday night, I have a feeling Drew's going to go with her. Drew's just going to walk out. Sorry, I don't know what's making me think that.
That's actually not a bad. That's
I don't know why. I don't know why that's in my head, but when I saw Tully's reaction again tonight that Tim didn't save her and she got really sulky and went off to the room, I don't know what it actually was that went through my mind, but all I kept thinking was Tully's going to go Monday night, Drew's going to be on his lonesome, on his own. I just have this gut-wrenching feeling that he's just going to walk out, walk with her and go and just walk out.
I don't think Drew would walk for his own sake. I think
for her.
To protect her, he feels like he's got to protect her.
Yeah, I just got a feeling. Let's see if I'm right. But if I am right, I need to be a psychic.
However, if she was in the house and Drew got evicted, I think that she'd be walking out.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, look. Another action-packed episode, people.
Yes, I'd just like to thank all the listeners. Hope we, have been fair in all our comments.
Well, I know for sure that Phantom's got a fair fan club out there.
Yeah, so God.
I'm impressed.
Me?
Absolutely. I know, it's passive-aggressive stuff, but it's still fans. Still fans.
There we go. Fans that like to take me to task on things. That's all right. We like that.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, until next week, people. It's goodbye from me, and goodbye, Mrs. ODN.
Goodbye, everybody.
And goodbye, Phantom 13.
See you later, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.